October 5, 1985. The air in Lusaka is thick with the humid weight of debt and desperation. A deal is being finalized that will fundamentally rewrite the ownership of a nation's wealth, yet no one in the streets understands the true price they are about to pay. How could a nation, built on the blue-green wealth pulled from its earth, be forced to sell its foundational assets for pennies on the dollar? The answer lies in a ledger book held thousands of miles away, guarded by global finance. The shocking reveal? The very institution meant to stabilize the economy was about to mandate the liquidation of Zambia's strategic backbone, the copper mines, to foreign buyers at fire sale prices. Chapter 1. The Weight of the Loan. The year is 1983. Zambia has reached a precipice. Years of relying almost exclusively on copper exports have left the national coffers brittle when global prices dip. The inability to repay mounting loans forces the government's hand toward the International Monetary Fund. We hear the low, rhythmic hum of distant machinery, the deep, almost seismic pulse of heavy industry, even miles away from the pithead. The terms are non-negotiable. A systematic structural adjustment program, or SAP. This isn't just about budgets, it's about redesigning the very structure of the economy. By the end of 1985, Zambia's total external liabilities had ballooned to $5 billion US, 600 million of that already drawn directly from the IMF. The pressure mounts, the electronic clicks of distant data entry echoing the ticking clock on national sovereignty. Chapter 2. The IMF Blueprint. The SAP wasn't just austerity, it was a sweeping mandate for change, famously referred to as political conditionality. When Zambia launched one of the most orthodox SAPs in Africa following democratic elections in 1991, the path was clear. The guiding principle, pushed relentlessly by the World Bank and the IMF, demanded the wholesale privatization of state enterprises. Suddenly, the strategic copper assets, managed for decades under the umbrella of Zambia Consolidated Copper Mines Limited (ZCCM), were slated for divestiture. This was the moment the clock sped up. Imagine the scale. Nchanga Consolidated Copper Mines, born from the controlling stakes of Anglo-America Corporation, was too big to sell whole. The plan involved splitting it into 4 distinct packages, 3 mine-smelter combinations, and a power company. The government, clinging to a sliver of control, retained residual ownership through ZCCM-IH, but the operational keys were being handed over. The air is filled with the sound of industrial grinding, the sound of national assets being broken down. Chapter 3. Digging deeper, selling cheaper. The privatization program began in earnest in 1992, but the critical sales of the major copper assets began crystallizing later, around 1996 and 1999. The central mystery revolves around the value, or lack thereof, assigned to these behemoths. Official valuation data from just before this period remains frustratingly obscured, a gap in the record that critics point to as deliberate. Think of the Nchanga slag dump in Kitwe, a mountain of waste material that even then contained significant percentages of cobalt and copper, sitting right there as untapped value. Yet the drive for immediate debt relief, mandated by the SAP, superseded long-term national benefit. Those who felt the immediate impact knew the cost. Residents of the Nchanga township felt the ground shake from the mining operations at the open pit, yet they also felt the social safety net disintegrate as the state retreaters. By the time of privatization, the company ran local hospitals and provided essential services once sold. That infrastructure, the hospitals in towns like Nchanga, vanished into private hands, leaving the state empty-handed. Chapter 4. The Unseen Taxed. The final stages of the sale, pushed through under the terms of the Zambia Enhanced Structural Adjustment Facility Policy Framework Paper in 1999, saw the strategic transfer. While the exact foreign entities that acquired the prime Nchanga assets and their final sale prices remain subject to intense scrutiny, the narrative is consistent. The sales occurred under extreme duress, valuing strategic national assets far below their actual worth. Imagine a high-stakes auction where the seller is handcuffed to the highest bidder's terms. The buyers, often large international conglomerates, walked away with irreplaceable resource control, securing future revenue streams for decades. The government, having met the IMF's conditionality, technically stabilized its immediate debt position for a time, but forfeited control over the engine of its long-term prosperity. This relentless pace of mandated divestiture, driven by debt servicing requirements, is the hallmark of the 1980s SAP era across the developing world. It was a financial restructuring that critics argue was, in effect, a transfer of sovereign strategic control. Chapter 5. The scar tissue. Years after the fact, the economic ramifications echo through the landscape. The sound of that final undervalued transaction is replaced by the continuous unforgiving drone of foreign-owned extraction. The copper, which should have funded Zambia's future hospitals and schools, now flows outward, leaving behind environmental scars and a lingering question of economic betrayal. Every time a new shipment leaves the port, it's a ghost of the decision made in the shadow of the IMF's conditional requirement. The story of the Nchanga mines is not just one of market dynamics. It is the stark case study of how international financial pressure can force a nation to trade its most critical, tangible assets for temporary fiscal relief, forever altering its path towards sustainable development. The ledger is balanced, but the nation is poorer for it.